was always the Jags.
Always the Jags.
It's always the Jags.
Always the Jags.
Welcome into Always the Jags, your podcast for everything Jacksonville, everything Jaguars, everything Duval. I know this podcast is called Always the Jags, and we may not be feeling like it's always the Jags, but it still is. It still is. You can take these losses in one of two ways, right? So obviously we lost to the Rams pretty badly, 35-7. The game was kind of closer than the score indicates, but not really. But if you look at it, we had more yards than the Rams. The Rams didn't need to get that many yards because we kept turning it over on fourth down. But again, if you look at the game just in itself, or like where we're coming from, we just lost to two Super Bowl contenders. We lost back-to-back games to Super Bowl contenders. Now, the Seahawks were a little bit more competitive, and a lot of people weren't sure if the Seahawks would be Super Bowl competitors, but the Rams are a pretty popular matchup for some people to make the Super Bowl. Now, they had looked vulnerable, and I think it's safe to say that we're not in the same class of the Colts right now. Daniel Jones is just playing better ball. We would be if Trevor Lawrence was playing like Daniel Jones, but the Colts hung with the Rams. We didn't, right? So, I mean, it's pretty clear the Colts are going to be the favorites to win this division, and now we're kind of looking at it as like we got to avoid being swept by the Colts, which is kind of what we thought we were going to do earlier this season. We thought we might sweep them, but now we have to avoid being swept. So it's a tough circumstance, in a lot of different ways. But the Jaguars were 4-3 going into the bye. Most of us didn't think that was going to be the case for the season, right? Like, we can at least accept that. On my picks for the season, I had us at a very hopeful 3-4, but probably 2-5. And we're 4-3. Now, 5-2 sounds way better, and not trying to butter up the Jags or be like, hey, it's not that bad when it was bad in London, right? But the issue is just we didn't correct any of the mistakes that we noticed that we were having in our earlier games. And that, dropping that game to the Bengals is really going to hurt. And the thing that was different about this season, because like in 2023, like if you look, the thing that's so hard about Trevor, there's so many things to start. The thing that's so hard about Trevor is he now has victories. He has beaten Josh Allen head-to-head twice. He's beaten Patrick Mahomes. He's beaten Justin Herbert head-to-head twice. He's beaten, who else has he beat? And he's beaten Lamar Jackson head-to-head. So Trevor has some of these great victories on his belt. But it's just the consistency. Sometimes we run into a team that's just like a buzzsaw and there's nothing we can do. And, that doesn't really happen to the great quarterbacks. Like Josh Allen and the Bills don't really get blown out. They got blown out by the Ravens a couple of years ago. But then that was kind of the difference. Like in our 2023 season, we were winning by like one score. We were beating teams. We weren't necessarily beating them down, but we were winning. And then like we faced the 49ers and absolutely got obliterated. But we were still in the mix for the number one seed in the AFC, even though we got obliterated. And before the Rams game, that was kind of the hallmark on the season. Like, okay, even though we've had 2 losses now, and the Seahawks went at home, it didn't feel great. Like, it wasn't good. But, hey, we didn't get blown out, which is kind of typical of Jaguars in the past. And, we hung around and we fought, right? Let's see that, and then you feel a lot better. Because I think we would feel a lot better about this game if it was, 28-21. If we had been able to put some points on the board and get something positive. But that one touchdown came in garbage time when the game was already out of reach. And so let's dive into the game a little bit because, again, the Rams, the thing that the Jaguars keep doing in these games, even in the games that we've won, is just slow starts by the offense. It takes so long to get it going. And it's so weird to have, and those slow starts to a game, like you can have a hot start to a season, but the slow starts to the games will start to haunt you over and over and over again. Like the Rams had a hot start and then they cooled off dramatically on offense. but because they had already had the hot start, they were still able to keep up and win. And, it's eerily similar to the 2018 season when the Jaguars, came off, all that AFC championship. And then our second game of the season, I don't think we blew out, but we kind of dominantly beat the Patriots, a Super Bowl contender team. If you make the championship, you're a Super Bowl contender, right? And so Jaguars, now this year, coming off a win against a Super Bowl contender, we lose in a pretty glaring fashion, I would say, to two other Super Bowl contenders. And now that the Chiefs have Rashee Rice back and it looks like their offense, a lot of people are questioning, would the Jaguars have been able to even beat the Chiefs if Rashee Rice was in the game? But again, that's neither here nor there. Rashee Rice is back, whatever. So the thing is, we're back at that point where we're having those slow starts on offense. And 3 and outs, like, it's one thing to not be able to score, but you can't do 2 3 and outs to start a game. We had 2 3 and outs. The Rams picked up a first down on their first play from scrimmage. And that's the part, like, we can't have Trevor, like, trying to figure out the offense or, and I think that's partly why Brendan Strange is not there, too. Because, like, if you look at the way we start the game, Matthew Stafford, even the announcers noticed, like, he was trying to, like, feel out the defense, and he kind of was hitting check downs, doing runs. He wasn't really going for, like, chunk, big, explosive plays. He was kind of feeling them out, taking what the defense was giving you. And Trevor had an opportunity to do the same thing, but just either guys would drop the ball or Trevor won't hit them in the right spot. And I just saw a post that perfectly described it. Either Trevor throws a ball that is completely misses an open target and can't hit him at all, and he has no way to get to the ball, whether it's like wide right, too high, too low, whatever. Then Trevor hits a receiver right in the hands, and he drops it. And then we run the ball and get stuffed, or we get called for illegal formation. Someone catches it and we get called for an illegal formation penalty. And that's been our offense this whole year. And the sad part is like, it's just lack of execution. Like, if you just do the basic things, the offense will work. That's the part that's driving me insane. And like, in Doug Peterson's scheme, I think in Liam Cohen's scheme, it's a little more complicated to get guys open. But again, remember, Doug Peterson's scheme stopped working after a little bit. Like, it got stale. It didn't have. I think the complication of Liam Cohen's scheme allows it to adapt to different defenses and continue to stay fresh and continue to stay innovative to get guys open, because you kind of need new ways to get guys open. Doug Peterson would scheme them open, but then defenses would clue in, and he had no answers for that. Like, it feels like Liam Cohen has answers. It's just the players have to make the plays. Like, this is the one time where I would agree, like, the players need to make the plays. Or maybe Liam Cohen, it could be on both. Like, maybe Liam Cohen needs to simplify it more in order to make the offense run better. But I don't know how simplifying it is going to change a bad throw or a throw that's just not accurate. Or how is simplifying the offense going to make it easier for you to catch a ball that hits you right in the hands? Like, I just don't get that. And the Rams marched up and down the field. And they did whatever they wanted, even without Puka Nacua. Like, you would think 35-7, okay, maybe if Puka Nacua probably went crazy. How bad would this game have been if Puka Nacua was actually playing? The Jaguars have been in London all week. They looked jet lagged. They looked more jet lagged than the Rams, who came over that same, like, a day before. So, I mean, Liam was pretty forgiving in the Seahawks loss. We can take it and learn from it and grow from it. I don't know. Based on his personality, I could see him kind of tearing into the Jaguars for this loss, because this one kind of feels like you need to be ripped. Not because, and again, it's just like basic execution, just catching the ball. Like, there's a difference between when you get beat by another guy, right? But when you're not making the throw, or when the ball is hitting you and you're dropping it, you're beating yourself. And like, it's the easiest thing in the world to fix. You just don't do it. We knew the Rams defense was going to be a problem for our offensive line. That defensive line is just as good as the Seahawks. They held up a little bit better. I think Robert Hainsey being back helped out. not necessarily because Jonah Monheim is bad, but I think he just knows protections and stunts and blitzes and things like that, and kind of helped out where guys needed to go. But like Walker Little had a better game than that disaster against the Seahawks. Anton Harrison is playing a little bit better. I think since he got banged up since the Chiefs, he hasn't been the same. Patrick McCarry, like over the bye, it might be time for a tough question because that's the third or fourth week in a row where he's put up a kind of a clunker. And he's I think the highest paid guy on our line. I don't know if he's getting 12. I think Walker Lowe might be the highest guy because he's getting 15. And it's the thing I don't like. And I banged the table for us to keep Walker Little. I banged the table for us to start him over Cam Robinson and let Cam Robinson go. I banged the table for us to draft him. So like, I know obviously the Jaguars brass didn't listen to me, but like, it feels like a personal, like a personal letdown. Like I vouched for you, and you give up 3 sacks against the Seahawks, and I don't know what it is. Like he's playing so much worse this year after he got the bag. And like I don't understand what happens to players or like what goes through it or the mindset, but like so many players after they get paid, whether that's um extended or signed in free agency, they just fall off. And it's not like, again, there's always a natural fall off when you get older, right? But this is Walker Little's like first contract. He's just out of his rookie. He finished his rookie deal. This is his first contract in the NFL. This should be your prime that you're hitting. You should be better than all the years that you were before. Now, a lot of players, it's hard for them to live up to that, sometimes. But I'm not understanding it. And if he keeps playing poorly, it's going to be a problem. Now, I think it's easier to replace, when you have a higher paid tackle and a higher paid guard. It's better to be able to replace those guys with somebody else that's already on your roster. But at this point, yeah, maybe try Jonah Monheim at guard because he played well at center. And if he can play better than Patrick McCarry at guard, that's a better option because Trevor needs more time. And even if Trevor gets more time, he needs to see the open players on the field. And I don't know if Liam Cohen's offense is like giving him, like I think Doug Peterson's offense also kind of gave him a lot of answers. So it was kind of like you always know who the open man is based upon the scheme. So even if you go through your reads, there's one guy that's going to be open. So you can go through your reads, like you're starting on your first, second, but the third read is going to be open based upon the play. So the answer is in the scheme. You don't have to think about, okay, who should I hit that's open? I think in Liam Cohen's scheme, especially with Baker Mayfield, you have multiple options. It kind of depends on who gets open. So your first read might not be open, but your second read might be open, or your third read might be open. And I don't know if Trevor's just not used to having the answer, or I mean, he's changing the plays at the line too. So there were so many plays where he had Travis Hunter wide open, and even Travis Hunter got a little, frustrated. Now it was still a good day for Travis Hunter, and I'm glad I started him in fantasy. 101 catches, no, sorry, 8 catches, 101 yards, and got his first NFL touchdown. But like that drive that we had where he went down and scored, it was too late because the Rams had already went up 28-7. And like that tempo they were doing, that was kind of catching the Rams on their heels a little bit. It's like, why didn't we see that 2 or 3 drives ago? Why did the urgency not kick in until you're down 28-0? Why didn't that urgency kick in on the first play from scrimmage? Hey, let's go score fast. And people were wondering, like, why are they playing hurry up right now? They don't really need to. And I think it's just because it was working. Like the commentators were saying, like, I don't remember who it was. He's like, I don't know why the Jaguars are playing hurry up. They still got time. But the hurry up was working because it was catching the Rams defense on their heels. Because we need to move quicker and with a sense of urgency to get down the field. Right now, it felt very lackadaisical. And that urgent feeling is what made our offense go for a little bit. And then, of course, the pressure's on, and you can't get anything on those fourth downs. So it's very rough. If it was scheme, like Urban Meyer was scheme issues. But Doug Peterson, it started to be scheme issues, started to be losing the locker room. It started to be, kind of a talent issue. There were some issues in talent where like our guys just weren't beating their guys. But here we are. James Gladstone has brought in the talent. Liam Cohen has brought in the scheme. And from what I'm seeing, this is not a talent issue, nor is this a scheme issue. I mean, I guess it's more of a talent issue technically. But the guys have, if the ball hits you in your hands, that means the scheme worked. And that means that you were, because you were able to get open. And it means that you were able to beat your man. So you have the talent to beat your man and get open. The problem is you just didn't catch it. And like at this point, if I see one more drop pass on the season, if I'm Liam Cohen, I'm bringing in a new wide receivers coach. Like that guy might be his buddy, and I get it, and it probably would be tough. But I'm bringing one in because this is ridiculous. Like I'm not going to say we only lost this game because of drop passes, but we have a very different season if guys just catch the ball, which kind of brings me into my next point. Like if you thought about what the Jaguars' issues would be this season, we would not have expected two of our biggest issues to be, number one, Cam Little can't kick anymore, and number two, Brian Thomas Jr. can't catch anymore. And again, the inconsistency from Trevor Lawrence is always, it hurts. But like we thought Brian Thomas Jr. would be fixed after the Texans game. And he kind of was. You know, after he had that big catch, it was kind of like, okay. And then the Chiefs game, Travis Hunter kind of broke out a little bit with some big catches, and Brian Thomas Jr. came along. And he had some drops, but those were like harder catches. But we still won. So it was like, you know what? Fine, we're good. Seahawks game. It felt like, okay, Brian Thomas Jr. is back. Yeah, we did lose, but he was making plays up and down the field. He had 80 yards and a touchdown. Should have had a 61-yard touchdown called back on a penalty caused by this much of Travis Hunter's toe. This much had it called back. And so it was kind of like, okay, maybe he's better. And then he has that one drop at the end of the Seahawks game. And suddenly he's reverted back. Because we saw in this Rams game, he had 2-3 drops. And there were tough catches. Don't get me wrong. But like, I don't know. The difference is like, if Brian Thomas Jr. was already being paid wide receiver one money, I would be a lot more upset because it's like, you're supposed to be a wide receiver one and you're dropping passes like this. Maybe he was just mischaracterized as a wide receiver one. And that's, not necessarily on him, but maybe the pressure, the spotlight, whatever it is might be too much for him. Okay, we treated him like a wide receiver one, but it's not like we paid him like one. You know what I mean? Like maybe he's just a wide receiver too. Maybe that's just the way it is. Maybe those types of catches, you can't expect him to come down with them every single time. Because there are guys like that who do, and those guys get paid. But then we have Trevor Lawrence, who we are paying like he's the number one quarterback. And number one quarterback hit guys in the chest with the ball when it's time to make an easy play. Matthew Stafford, he didn't miss a single throw in this game. At least one that, so Matthew Stafford did miss throws, don't get me wrong, but they weren't wide open when he missed them. It was more like he threw it and it kind of hit the ground or something like that. But even so, the throws that Matthew Stafford missed, his team was still able to put up 35 points. And no drops for the Rams. No drops. No drops. And then Cam Little, what happened to his leg? Like, he hits a 70-yarder in the preseason. He hasn't hit a field goal in almost, it feels like 3-4 games, because he missed one in the 49ers game. And then I can't remember if he hit one in the Texas game. And he did hit one in the Chiefs game. But then he missed it in the Seahawks game. And then he missed the extra point here. He missed the extra point in the Seahawks game. And then he missed the field goal. And then he missed the field goal again in this game. And it's like we had so many trips to the red zone where we could have gotten points. And just not having that confidence, even I think at one point the Rams were up like 17, not 17, it was like 14 something, 14 zip. And I don't know if they went up 21 before we had the chance to kick the field goal or before Cam Little missed the field goal. But 14-3 is a lot different than 21 zip. If you're able to go and just kick that field goal and make it, 14-3 feels way different. Maybe next time we drive, we go down and we get a touchdown, and then our defense forced like 5 3-and-outs in a row for the Rams, which is perfect for our offense because a 3-and-out keeps the clock in our favor when you're down. But we couldn't do anything with it because either guys wouldn't catch the ball, Trevor missed them with the throw, or we had a penalty. And it's so frustrating because you wouldn't think that these would be the issues plaguing us. Like, we kind of thought our offense would be high powered and we thought we might be let down by our defense this year. But it's the exact opposite. And again, I want to believe that Trevor is the guy. I want to believe it so badly. You don't even know. Like, every time Blake Bortles played well, I was always skeptical. Like, I don't know. I don't know. He's played so rough in the past. I don't know. And even after that 2017 season, I didn't want to re-sign him. I was like, let's go draft Lamar Jackson and let Blake Bortles finish out his contract, and let's instead re-sign Allen Robinson. That's what I wanted. And we re-signed Blake Bortles. Trevor Lawrence makes 3 times what Blake Bortles has made. Trevor Lawrence's deal right now is 3 times higher per year than Blake Bortles. And he got that in 2018, the year Lamar Jackson was drafted. Obviously, quarterback contracts have exploded since then. But Blake Bortles got $18 million a year. Trevor Lawrence is getting $55 million a year. 18 times 3 is 54. He's making triple than what we signed Blake Bortles for in the expanse of, 7 years later? 7 years later. Is Trevor Lawrence 3 times better than Blake Bortles? That's a question we all kind of have to look at. And it's a tough question. But, like, playoff wins, how many does Blake Bortles have? 3. Because wild card, divisional. No, he has 2. Wild card and divisional. How many does Trevor Lawrence have? 1. It's a tough question we got to continue to look at. And it pains me to say it, but now, both have led the Jaguars to the playoffs the same amount of times. Now, if Trevor gets to the playoffs this year, he'll have more playoff appearances than Blake Bortles. And if he gets a win, he'll have more playoff wins than Blake Bortles. Well, if he gets 2 wins, right? If we somehow make it to the championship. But you just, even if that level, you just don't get blown out like that. And something's got to change. And again, I don't feel like I'm ready to give up on Trevor, but this season is going to be very telling. And I think this season, and I think the last half of the season, basically, if Trevor continues playing the way he's playing right now, if something doesn't click for him, because in 2022, we were all waiting for the moment to click for him, and it clicked somehow in the Ravens game, and he went nuts. And then for the rest of the season, it was like a Cinderella story, and we made it into the playoffs. And it's like, it kind of feels like we're waiting for that to happen again, but to take the next level. But it's not like before, he wasn't making plays at all. Now we're just waiting for him to make consistent plays. Like, you make the plays down the field, but just don't do it when it's too late. Do it now. Do it when we need it. And if it keeps going the way it's going, I mean, he won't end up being the guy. And we'll lose a lot more games. So he won't have an opportunity to prove it in the playoffs. So, yeah. So we head into the bye week a little bit unsure. We'll talk a little bit about how the Jaguars can beat the Raiders. And then, next week for the bye, I'll be taking a break for the bye week. Maybe talk about, maybe I'll talk about some trade moves or something. I might still do an episode here or there or something like that. But for the Raiders, the Raiders are in a tailspin. Like, I think some people pick them to make the playoffs, just by bringing in Pete Carroll. I was skeptical because I'm like, Pete Carroll doesn't go out there and make the plays. He doesn't play cornerback. And the Raiders lost their starting safety, and they don't really have any cornerbacks. So I was like, their defense is probably going to get, run through. And offensively, they've got a great tight end Ashton Genty was a good pickup for them for the running back position. But they don't have a receiver. They don't have a big time receiver. And, it's kind of funny because it's like, if you look at the Raiders, like why teams don't pay guys, I still don't get because Josh Jacobs, who was the Raiders' number 4 overall pick, is still running great for the Green Bay Packers, who signed him. He has probably more yards and more touchdowns than Ashton Genty. And imagine if the Raiders had been able to take Ted McMillan instead, and they had just re-signed Josh Jacobs. Like, out of all the players to re-sign, a running back is the cheapest. To me, that's who you'd want to re-sign. So, the Raiders would be sitting there with Brock Bowers, Ted McMillan, and Josh Jacobs, who has more yards and touchdowns than Ashton Genty does this year. And he's helping out the Green Bay offense a lot. So it's a decision that they made, right? And I didn't think that Geno Smith would kind of fall off this hard, but I do think Geno Smith's in a tough spot where he has an offense that doesn't have a whole lot of playmakers. Brock Bowers didn't really come back as strong as we thought he would this year. I drafted him high in a lot of leagues, and he's been out for 3 weeks straight. And even when he was in, he wasn't putting up that many points, at least not that we would expect. I think Travis Kelce has more points than him, which will tell you a lot. But again, Travis Kelce's played more games. So I think the key against the Raiders is to reestablish the running game, because that's one thing that we haven't been able to establish against the Seahawks or the Rams. And the problem is when we don't establish the run, if we can't establish the run because they're loading up the box, Trevor's not threatening you with his arm because he's not seeing the open guy. Like if he hit Travis Hunter for a few of those plays, the run game would have opened up, or if receivers were catching the ball, the run game would open up because they would need more guys in the back to cover. But it's like, why do you need a guy in the back to cover if the receivers don't even catch the ball? So I think it's going to be the key against the Raiders. Just reestablish the run. They've got Max Crosby. You're going to know where he is. That's their biggest threat on their defensive line. I think he's hurt, but he'll probably be back in time to play. The protection you'll just run at him, right? And run guys away from him, and you'll be able to get nice runs. And then threaten. And let's build on Travis Hunter, because I think right now Travis Hunter is playing like the tough part is Travis Hunter is playing like the best cornerback and the best wide receiver on our team. He had a nice play against Devontae Adams, a nice breakup against Devontae Adams, one of the best receivers in the league. And he's out there making plays. He's just doesn't always line up correctly. Now, my question is, it's time for Travis Hunter to be full-time on defense and offense, because our defense gave up too many big plays, and Travis Hunter has been playing too well on. And there's one play that you'll see online where he was in on JSN. I think it was single coverage, and JSN flipped his hips and turned really quick on a move that burned Greg Newsome. But Travis Etienne has the same sudden stop-start ability that cornerbacks, that these wide receivers have. So he was able to adjust and get right back on him. And that's the thing that same ability that allowed him to pick up that 2nd and 20 by making a guy miss, and he did it again in the Chiefs game, by that suddenness, that stopping the acceleration. If you can use it as a wide receiver, it's great because it burns defensive backs. But also, if you have that ability as a defensive back, it's great because wide receivers can't burn you with that move because you're just as sudden as they are. And that's why Travis Hunter needs to play 100% both ways of the ball right now. It's just where we are. And he needs to be out there. Now, we don't have to force the ball to him, but if he's open, throw it to him. He's the most consistent thing we have right now. Now, I do think having Brenton Strange back is going to do wonders for our offense, right? If people if you wonder why the offense has been broken the last 2 games, I would say, where is Brenton Strange? He's out, right? And before the season, I even talked about how much this Brenton Strange injury could potentially hurt us. Because I said, maybe we need another guy in there, because I don't trust Hunter Long or Johnny Munt as our starting tight ends if Brenton Strange has to miss some time. And sure enough, Trevor missed Johnny Munt, and Trevor missed Hunter Long, and Hunter Long also dropped a couple of passes, and so did Johnny Munt. Brenton Strange doesn't have a drop, And I'm 99% sure Trevor has 100% completion percentage when targeting him. Not to mention, he also blows holes open in the running game. So having him back, having the bye, getting him off of injured reserve is going to be massive. And I think we'll see a return to the running game. If he's going to be out longer and during this bye week, that's something James Gladstone could assess. It seems like the Jaguars, the way they're clearing up cap space. Well, we'll talk a little bit about that next week when we go into the bye about any maneuvers or things that we could do. But for right now, Brendan Strange coming back is going to be huge. Travis Hunter needs to play full-time on both sides of the ball. And I know he's had trouble lining up. A lot of pre-snap motion penalties are on him. To me, if I'm Liam Cohen and I'm looking at my offense and I know Travis Hunter needs to be on the field, but I want to limit these penalties, simple question. Does Travis Hunter have to be the guy that motions? Does he, like, for the play to work, can I put Travis Hunter in a more simple position where he doesn't have to move, where he just stands still and his job is to get open? Or, run whatever route is on there. That way he doesn't worry about, am I supposed to run in motion or am I not supposed to be in motion? Brian Thomas Jr. plays full-time on offense too. Let him do all the motion stuff because you can't have two receivers motioning at the same time anyway. And as long as Travis Hunter understands if he needs to run a route or block, Travis Hunter's taking time to learn the offense, but I would simplify Travis Hunter's role in the offense. Like, if the X receiver is supposed to be the motion man and Travis Hunter is supposed to play the X receiver, then I would make him the Y receiver. And even if that means he's switching back and forth between the X role and the Y role, as long as he's not in the motion role, just do that so he can just get lined up. And then maybe in the offseason he can be a motion guy. But for right now, just don't have him motion. You've got other players that you can put in motion. You don't need Travis Hunter to do it. And that way he won't get confused lining up. Just no more motions for him. Maybe he'll catch on. But for right now, that seems like an easy solution. Because there's lots of plays I see Brian Thomas Jr. where he doesn't have to go in motion. So now, of course, if you're sending the same guy in motion, can that, be a little predictable to the defense? I mean, maybe, but just because the guy is going in motion doesn't mean he's getting the ball, and it doesn't mean you know who's getting the ball. So I think, the answer here is Travis Hunter is on the field for every offensive snap, but he doesn't go in motion. And he's on the field for every defensive snap. And depending on, like, Anthony Campanile likes to run a lot of zone. I don't know if Travis Hunter, how he's playing in Anthony Campanile's scheme. So far, I haven't seen him give up the big play, or I haven't seen him have a miss or a breakdown in the secondary. So maybe he's catching on to the defensive scheme more, but he needs to be on the field for both offense and defense. It's just that simple. He's got the suddenness to keep up with guys, and he's got the suddenness to make guys miss. So we need to make it happen, make it work around him. So those are my thoughts. And I think that's how we'll beat the Raiders too. The Raiders will threaten us in the middle of the field with Brock Bowers, of course, but having Devin Lloyd's return will be huge as well. So I'm glad he gets another week to rest up. This bye came at a great moment because I also think our defense suffered from not having Devin Lloyd out there, which is another sign that, again, we'll get to in the bye week, guys that need to be like if James Gladstone does anything during the bye week, I'm calling up Devin Lloyd's agents and I'm hammering out a deal. I'm giving him the Zach Bond deal and I'm saying, hey, can you sign us before we get on the field against the Raiders? Because we need him. He's the best coverage linebacker we have, and that's what we need. We need a coverage linebacker. And I don't worry about Brock Bowers hurting us if he's in coverage, and I don't worry about Ashton Genty if Foye Oluokun is focused on stopping Genty, because Foye is still getting off blocks, and he's still a tackling machine. So, again, you don't want to underestimate any team ever, right? Trey Tucker has shown the ability to get behind defenses. We need Andrew Wingard playing a little more. Like, he's been playing solid the first 3 weeks, but he's kind of fallen off the last 2 in assignments and things. So we need guys to be a little bit more disciplined in how they're running routes and things like that, and watching guys running routes and coming into their zones. But we should beat the Raiders. If we don't, the entire season is lost, right? And it's very important that we beat the Raiders because I'm not sure the Houston Texans just lost to the Seahawks. Now they play the 49ers and the Broncos next. Those could be 2 losses. If the Texans lose both of those games, I mean, their season is over. They only have 2 wins on the season. Right now, they're 2-4. And I think they could very well lose to the 49ers and the Broncos. If they win, they come into our Jaguars Texans game, instead of at 2-6, they would come in at 4-4. And if we beat the Raiders, we'll come into that game 5-3. So whoever wins that game will go to 5-4. And no, whoever, if the Texans win that game, they would go to 5-4, and so would we. So we would now be tied with the Texans. So if they lose, that would put us in a great spot to beat the Raiders and maybe keep it going and just knock the Texans out of this thing in week 9, because when teams lose that much, it gets demoralizing, especially with the Texans just losing a tough game to the Seahawks. And the 49ers and Broncos are no slouch. I can see the Texans winning one of those games. I don't know if they're going to be able to win both. So if we could do that, that will kind of check the Texans off the list as far as getting into the playoffs and competing for the division. The Colts continue to roll. It doesn't look like there's anyone in the league that they can't beat. So I don't think we'll be competing for the division. And I thought that would be because of the Texans. Turns out it's because of the Colts. But again, that's okay, because the Jaguars owning that head-to-head will come in handy against the Chiefs. So the games that we really need to focus in on and make sure that we win are the Chargers, the Raiders, and I would love to beat the Texans. If you can beat some of these AFC opponents, you'll be able to go into the playoffs with head-to-heads over the Chiefs or the Chargers. So if we're looking at that last wild card spot, we'll have the head-to-head if we end up with a similar record to them. So all of that to say, let's get back on track versus the Raiders, right? Jaguars fans, not all is not lost. We've got some players coming back from injury. Next week, we'll talk about if there's any more moves that James Gladstone will make, because we all know he's not afraid to make moves. And again, all is not lost, but there does need to be something fixed if we're going to have any kind of success this season, which we should expect, because again, I think in order to prove that he's the guy that should stick around, Trevor needs to make the playoffs, and he needs to be the reason why we won. We need to see more games like him against the Chiefs, where he was the reason why we won, in order to have any kind of longevity moving forward. Like any kind of, this is it. This is who we want leading our team. So let me know your thoughts. How the Jaguars played against the Rams, how we're going to fare against the Raiders. And then next week, I think I'll talk about any moves that I would have James Gladstone make, and what the future kind of holds. So, and never forget, it was always Jags, even when it wasn't.